At last we come to the end of all things, or at least the end of NemeSeptember. We are finishing off the month, and by extension, finishing off my collection of Nemesis Prime figures that I have to date with whatever this is called. The number for it is BS-03S. I'm not entirely sure what company makes it. All I know is this is an oversized and very slightly re-engineered in a couple of places knockoff of Unique Toys Challenger in Nemesis Prime colors. The reason I have this is because I never was able to get the regular Challenger in Nemesis Prime colors. They had a couple of versions available. I think there was one that was like black and purple. Obviously this one's black and teal, but they had a couple of options available and I just never got them. At the time, I didn't have a Nemesis Prime collection and I already had Challenger, so I was just like, I don't need that. And then of course I got rid of Challenger because I want Nemesis Primes, but then I couldn't find this anywhere, and yeah. That kind of stunk. But now there is this somewhat oversized knockoff of it, and so I got the color scheme I want, and it's slightly improved in a couple of very small ways, which I am fine with. It's it wasn't essential, but I mostly entirely just wanted it for the color scheme. If anything, I would have preferred it to be the regular Challenger size, because it was a little bit tricky to figure out how to get this guy to fit in the display, but I managed it, and now we have this, and it's very cool. It's Unique Toys Challenger, but bigger, at least in truck mode. As you can see, I've got some of the accessories pegged onto the back here, and we'll take a look at these more when we get to robot mode, but I've got the shield and sword all here, and they peg into the back, but as you saw, the sword doesn't quite fit, so I had to rotate it slightly. And it does also come with I believe it comes with the staff stuff, I think. But I know for certain it comes with like the little wrist blade thing. I do not have that out, so sorry if y'all want to see that. It's just for me, the sword and shield are the main things. It also, I believe, comes with a rifle, but again, I left that in the box. Though I did include, I did bring these out so that I can talk about these when we get to that. Anyone familiar with the knockoff Challengers that have been going around probably knows what those are. So yeah, here is this thing in vehicle mode, and it is a big, very hefty, like this is heavy, truck that is in classic, at least in my mind, Nemesis Prime colors with the metallic-y teal and the red windows. And once again, the red windows look a little dull next to everything else going on around them. I kind of wish that these were either painted rather than translucent or were like brighter. But it's fine. The detailing is nice. The rims are painted in a shiny silver, and then the other details are more of a gunmetal-y silver color. So like along here and along the back here. Well, this isn't really painted. This is like that color plastic. But like this stuff is painted. And of course, there's the really nice pinstriping and flame details all along the, well, pinstriped flame details all along the truck cab here. And yeah, it looks really good. I like the colors. The design of, like, this figure in general is just really cool. Like, I always appreciated what Unique Toys did with Challenger. And yeah, I don't know, it's a big long-nosed truck. I don't know what else to say about this thing. You can kind of see some robot junk tucked underneath there, but ultimately it's fine. And around back, you have a little taillight section, which I think it's clever how they incorporated this bit to both hold these pieces together and sort of clean up the back slightly. And you also have the trailer hitch, which for some reason on this figure, and I believe these knockoffs, this is a thing. I don't know why. Granted, I haven't messed with Challenger in a while, but I'm pretty sure this was not on a separate hinge. when it was on Challenger, but it is what it is. And yeah, I don't know. It's Challenger. There's really nothing else to say. In this mode, at least, it is just Challenger with maybe some extremely minor, nigh imperceptible cosmetic details that are a little different. That being said, it is by no means the same size as Challenger. As I've already said, this is an oversized knockoff, which means it is really rather large. If we bring in Artfire, you can already see how massive this truck is. And there's Rotorstorm and Bova Prime and Samus. And just for fun, for laughs, there's Burnout. So yeah, that's how this stacks up against a deluxe. It's gigantic, comparatively. I don't know. It's like I said, I kind of feel like it's maybe a little too big for my taste, but I can't deny that it is kind of satisfying just how substantial the whole thing is and weighty. And it holds together pretty well too. There are a couple of things that don't hold together as well as they did on Challenger, but it's a knockoff. Anyway, here is with the duck tank. And yeah, like the front does hold together, but you could see there's just this little split. Like it doesn't quite want to stay together all the way. And there's this little seam here. I'm not sure why that's showing because it's not really as prominent on this side. I don't really know what's misaligned there, but oh well. Oh, also before I do the transformation, I want to show that this should... No? Did they get rid of the opening door gimmick? Thought they retained that. Alright, well, maybe they got rid of it. I'll have to double check as I'm transforming it, but these side doors supposedly open. Anyway, yeah, let's get this transformed. But before we do that, real quick, if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done on the channel, or if you like NemeSeptember or just want to support the channel in general, I do have a Patreon, which there was a link for down in the description. There is only a single $1 tier, and that $1 a month gets you early access to new videos in addition to supporting the channel. As I said, if you'd rather support the channel in a way that doesn't require money, there's always the usual YouTube stuff of like, comment, subscribe, share, that kind of thing. There is also a different link down in the description to join the Shozy Discord, which Shozy, if you're not familiar, is an overseas website that sells a lot of like third-party masterpiece and knockoff stuff. I've been using them for years. Actually just got a figure recently from them, and it's glorious. But point is, they're great customer service. They're starting up this community, or have been working on setting up this community on Discord, and if you use the link to join their Discord server, I get a tiny bit of store credit that I can apply towards future purchases for future videos. So with all that said, let us transform this thing, and this is going to be a whole thing, because like Challenger is not complex, but involved. And this is that, but bigger and heavier. So having to do this at arm's length is going to be kind of tricky. So anyway, first thing I'm going to do is disconnect this bumper. Just kind of want to pull back and up because there are these little tabs here that plug in on the underside of the bumper here. So I'm just going to pull that up and then just pull that down to get all that out of the way. Now we want to disconnect the lower section of the truck. So we want to kind of pull this, well, you don't really have to pull that forward. What we want to do is split this center section. So that splits. They also peg in, the wheel wells peg in right around here. So you want to get those untabbed. And then they also tab in up here, so you can pull those back. And this all swings out. And we'll do that on both sides. Actually, no, we'll keep, no, I think we do have to do it. Yeah, I'm just realizing that the legs peg together and they're not going to be able to unpeg if this is still attached to the side of the truck. So there we've got this mess happening. Okay, now going to unpeg the legs from each other. They peg in together right here around the thigh sections. And swing those out a little bit. And I think just for the sake of not having stuff flopping around everywhere, I'm going to do the legs like this. So, first thing to do is take this flap and fold it in. I'll show it from the other angle when we get to the other leg, because I just want to try and get as much of this out of the way as I can. Fold this flap out. Now, I'm going to work on this section here. Want to see, this thing is just so big. So the upper wheel well section untabs from just above the headlight. There's the tab there. And now this will swing around like that. This whole assembly will swing over like that. The toe will swing up and sit just around the wheel there. This will fold in, and we also want to rotate this whole assembly this way. Rotate this whole assembly around so that this can just tuck in on the underside of what will become the foot. Now, this is one of the new things. This panel here is new. You want to rotate that around in this ball joint, and that will sit like this. So you want it like this for truck mode, and like this for robot mode. This will swing up. With this up, this now comes down and will peg in to this tab right here. So what was pegged into the headlight section is now pegged in there. This whole assembly rotates around, and this panel tabs in to the what's going on there. And now this all accordions in, and this tabs in here. And there we've got one leg done. Okay. And over here, we're going to take this hip skirt section and just fold that in. Okay. Now, this should be a little bit easier to show now that that one leg is taken care of. So I'm going to fold this around, and now this panel, you can see it just folds in like that. This panel folds out. This can swing up, and that can swing up. This whole thing can come together and swing up, and then this will tab in right there. I probably should have done that first to lock everything together a little bit better. And now this panel here rotates around and sits up against the leg like that. And unpeg the wheel well thing, swing it around. Oh, yep, okay. My bad. That's why you want to not... I knew there was a reason why you don't want to put the leg together. You want to swing this around first, because it's not going to get around the wheel sections. And then this comes down and pegs in right there. And then we can do... I'll fold this in while we're at it. Is there an extra thing in there? No, okay, I thought I felt an extra thing in there. Like there kind of is. That's weird. Oh, that's okay. That's just a thing that came untabbed. Never mind. So, with all that done, now we can do the foot. And let's show the foot from this angle. So, I want to kind of get that toe out of there, rotate this up, rotate this around, fold that foot down, and bring this all in. And then this panel will bend down a little bit so you can rotate it, and then that just tucks under the foot. And there we go. Now, want to rotate the legs around at the hip, which is a little tricky just because of how all this is situated, but you want to, I find it's easier to like bring it up, rotate it down like that, and there we go. There we've got legs, and that can just sit back down there. And now this is another new thing for the for this figure. You've got butt skirts. You can just fold those down. And now the lower body is entirely finished. Still have to get the upper body taken care of, and this guy is very tall. Okay, that all can just kind of sit there for now. Want to split the front section here. In addition to the windows, I find the easiest way to do that is just kind of push in to get them to separate, or maybe not. There we go. And then pull out these. There are little tabs on the insides here that tab into this roof section. So untab those, and before swinging those out, you want to take these bits and fold them down. Uh-oh. Hope that didn't break. Oh no, it just popped off. It unpegged. Okay. That's weird. But yeah, you swing these bits down. There we go. Yeah, it just came unpegged. So you want to swing those down so that they can clear the smokestacks. So swing those down and around. This roof section can also swing down and around. And before we do anything else, I think we're going to take care of this center piece. So I want to fold up the head. And for the roof, you accordion these panels on the side in towards the center. And that'll allow that to sit in like so. Now we can bring this up, and this will tab in here to keep the torso together. So let's bring that up and take that in. There we go. Okay. Whew. It's not a hard transformation. I actually think, this is something I was able to do completely by memory because I really like Challenger's transformation, and this is practically the same thing, but it is not easy to do at arm's length for something this size. Okay, so this section here moves out, and this kind of is free swinging. Want to fold this out a little bit and kind of rotate down while pulling this out so that the thing gets enough clearance, and then this comes up and okay, it doesn't peg in. Never mind. But this will swing around and this will peg into here. And we'll bring down what will become the arm. Now, these bits accordion in together, and this little piece just kind of is free flowing there. We want to get this in here so that this kind of tucks behind this piece, and this piece sits inside the this kind of assembly here. And that takes care of all that. And we're not going to bring this up just yet. So that's set up, and we'll leave that as is. We'll do this side next. So bring this out and in. Bring this out and around like so. Let's fold that out so we can bring that down. And now this will tuck in here, an accordion in, and that goes on the inside of the little roof tab thing. And okay, now this piece folds in and this slides back so that this piece, you can see it kind of lines up with this detail here. And I would bring this up, and you want to make sure that this armature goes between the window pieces. And then you can bring these in, and the pecs will tab into what was the bumper section of the truck. And that will lock the... Come on. Why aren't you going in? Why aren't you going in? Why are you not going in? Don't know what's going on here. don't see anything that's misaligned. There we go. Okay. That all locked in. Now the head panel can tab in here, and that sits nice and securely. These arms, if they haven't tabbed in already, can tab in here, or the shoulders rather. Okay. Now going to rotate the bicep 180 degrees. And this piece here, bring that up a little bit, this piece here pulls back, and we'll actually want to bend the elbow, I think. So we can pull this back all the way, rotate this around, and now this piece slides in. In Challenger, this was spring-loaded. It is no longer spring-loaded, which I think is fine. It doesn't really need to be spring-loaded, but just push that in or let it fall in, and then this swings in and tabs into the underside of the forearm. And this can sit down here, flip out the hand, and rotate it, and there we go. And this is another new engineering thing. It's not like a transformation thing, it's an articulation thing, but it basically allows this piece to sit on this bit of the arm because it used to be stuck up here and it just didn't look quite right. So this is on this double hinge system, so you can get pretty expressive with it, but it will also kind of lock in place straight because of the transformation. So you've got options. And then lastly, for the arm, this shoulder pauldron thing swings around. And there we have one arm done. And the second arm, as you'd expect, is the exact same as the first. Just rotate that, pull this back. Tapped in really well. Pull it back. Come on. There we go. I want to get that clearance. Pull that back, rotate that, let that go in, fold it back in and peg it in, get the hand all set up, and there we go. And then lastly, the shoulder. And that is it. There is BS-03S in robot mode, and it is, I mean, it's Challenger. It's Unique Toys Challenger in Nemesis Prime colors. I'm going to get these butt flaps out of the way because they impede the thigh rotation a little bit. So there we go. And there we have that all done. He is very large, but he looks cool. And I'm going to have to pull this camera way back to get him in the shot in its entirety. Because this thing is like, okay, I don't normally do this, but I'm gonna do this because I'm just, I feel like it's necessary and size comparisons are coming, but like, just to be absolutely sure you all understand, this guy is a little over 11.5 inches tall. He is very big. Way bigger than MP10, way bigger than Challenger, but he looks really cool, and it is the Challenger mold, so it's just almost disgustingly clean how how this all comes together. There's like no real visible kibble. Oh, actually, I'm sure someone noted this. I completely forgot. These smokestacks on the back, these little lower sections actually rotate in to clean up the back just that little bit more. But yeah, very, very clean figure, clean design. Looks super cool, and I love these colors. It's just it's a neat figure that I think is made even neater by being in Nemesis Prime colors. And the added engineering stuff is nice, but I don't think it's necessary to enjoy the figure. Like, I don't know that I'm... Okay. I don't dislike the butt skirts, but they do kind of get in the way a little bit. I kind of wish that those maybe weren't there, but it is what it is. They're not difficult to work around or anything like that. These panels here, I don't think these are necessary either, but they do kind of cover up some of the little truck bits that you might be seeing, so it cleans it up a little bit more. But yeah, that, like, in terms of the added engineering bits, it's kind of take it or leave it. Oh, also, there's a little bit, I believe there's a little bit more going on here for the molding to kind of clean this section up just a tiny bit more than Challenger did, but yeah. As I said, cool figure, great color scheme. The thing that kind of bums me out about this is they, it's Nemesis Prime. It is clearly Nemesis Prime. It's clearly Nemesis Prime colors. This color separation is great. It hits all the right notes. The only thing that bums me out with the deco on this guy, and I understand why they did what they did, but the only thing that bums me out is I kind of wish that they had used a metallic red for the chest, or for the chest plates rather, because then it would really evoke the classic Nemesis Prime color scheme with like the red chest windows. But I understand why they didn't, because, you know, this is like the flame deco is part of the overall truck motif. It's part of the armor design. And historically, if you want to call it that, traditionally, whatever, this Prime design doesn't have different colored flames. It's just like whatever the flames are, that's what color they are. They're not going to do like the turquoise, the metallic teal flames and red flames. I get that. So it's fine. I just would have preferred that, but it's still cool, and it still does read as a Nemesis Prime because, you know, it's primarily black and teal with a lot of this really nice kind of gunmetal-y silver mixed in. And pretty much everything I said about Challenger holds true with this guy. I love how the transformation, it is involved, but it's not complicated and it's not hard. I was only struggling with it a little bit because I'm, you know, moving around this gigantic thing at arm's length in front of a camera. It's actually really interesting and clever how it works, and it's like typical Unique Toys, and I want to say earlier Movieverse Unique Toys, not like I had their Desperado briefly, and I think that figure's cool for what it is, but like I did not like transforming that thing. It wasn't a nightmare, it just wasn't satisfying. There's a lot of little fiddly bits, and it's just like, It's something that I really didn't want to transform. This, I actually do enjoy transforming. It's like up there, like I wouldn't say it's as good as Perukill in terms of the overall like simplistic engineering to enjoyment factor in terms of transforming, but like it's in that vein. This guy, or Challenger, Perukill, and Lahire, I would all put in that group of like old school movieverse, live action movieverse Unique Toys figures that are just really cool to transform and aren't something that I look at and think like, ugh, I don't want to transform that. So yeah, I really appreciate how it works, and as with a lot of those other Unique Toys figures, it's basically, here's a vehicle that turns inside out to become a robot. And as a result, it hides so much in both modes. And it's just glorious. And you probably can already tell from here, but like the detailing on this is fantastic. Not just the molded detailing, which is pretty much all Challenger. There may be some extra detailing, I don't know, but like I love the mixture of like the metallic teal and the gold trim here, the black and silvery gunmetal-y kneecaps, the little goldish coppery details in the thighs, and of course lots of extra details that are painted in here as well, so that kind of adds a little bit more mechanicalness to the torso. It's very cool. What to do now? Yes. Oh, also, just swinging him around to the back again. Got to appreciate how clean the back is and how it all just, it's like, where'd the truck go? I always appreciate how Unique Toys can do that. But I think we can move on to the head, and by extension, eventually at least, the articulation. So, as is the case with this mold, like the Challenger mold, the KO also comes with two different heads. You've got the masked face and the non-masked face. Unlike the Challenger figure, you don't have a single head that does the swap between faceplate and no faceplate. You have an entire head and neck assembly that screws into the bottom of that plate, and you've got the one with the plate, the faceplate on it, and the one without. because this is a Nemesis, I really wanted to do the faceplate. Personally, I would have put the faceplate on even if it was Optimus Prime, but that's why that's like that. It's a nice head sculpt. It's nicely detailed. I've never been the biggest fan of Bayverse Optimus Prime's design, but for what it is, it's good, and the detailing is nice. Also, I like the fact that you've got this kind of silvery, gunmetal-y plastic with some nice glossy black highlights. Not highlights, but like detailing in a few places, like around the forehead section, near the mouth plate, kind of around the sides and back. And it just adds a little bit of extra pop to the whole thing. I do think it would have been nice if they were able to incorporate some of the teal, but I'm not entirely sure where that would go. But I do think it would be nice if there was just a little bit of that teal in there. Now, the big reason why these heads swap rather than open up and like do the face plates rotation thing is because they have light up eyes, and you get these really nice dark, not dark, you got these really nice, pretty bright red glowy eyes for Nemesis here, and I think that's really cool. It's just a little button on top of the head that you press, like right up there. And I love it when toys do that too, when it's like, hey, we're going to do a light feature, and to turn it on, you just push a button that you can easily access instead of like pulling the top of the head off and flipping a switch. It's one thing that really bugs me about Megatank. But yeah, this is really cool, and I don't know, for some reason I expected the eyes to glow purple, and I kind of really wish they did. I think the red looks good. Like, it doesn't look bad with the red in this color scheme or anything like that, but for some reason I just think I would have preferred purple eyes. Maybe just because it's slightly different. Also, I'm getting some light bleed on the side here. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, I generally don't have that turned on anyway because I don't want to run down the battery. So with that done, let's look at the articulation. The neck is on a swivel. You can go to about there if you get the chin out of the way. You can't go 360, but I don't know why you'd want to. And the head is on a hinge for up and down, so you can go up that far and down that far, which I think is enough for what you would need. If you get the shoulder pieces out of the way, which are on a hinge here, then this piece is on a ball joint, so you can hinge that out and move that around however you want. If you get the shoulder pieces out of the way, you can bring the arms around on a ratchet with no problem. They can go out depending on how you have these shoulder pads situated. They can like go out to there if you get everything out of the way. If you just have them like this, you're only going to get out to there because they kind of hit there and catch. As you saw in the transformation, you get a bicep rotation. There is a single elbow. Readjust this. There's a single elbow, but it does bend pretty well. It's over 90 at least. And as I said, there's this armature for this piece that if you want to like keep this area cleaner looking during posing or keep this attached here, you can do that. The wrists are on swivels, and then there's also this hinge for transformation, so based on how you position the hand, you can do some extra poses that way. The hands, the thumb is on a hinge, not a ball joint, just a hinge, and then you've got the two knuckle hinges on the thumb there. And then the fingers are individually jointed at the base, and then there's two more joints in there. So yeah, the original Challenger mold did not have individually jointed fingers, so that's cool. I like that you've got extra hand articulation with, or extra finger articulation with this guy. Now the waist can rotate. You kind of want to get the hip skirts out of the way if you want to rotate more. It's a little bit clashy, but you can rotate the waist around, and it might also clash with the little front skirt here, so that's something to be aware of. You technically get a backwards ab crunch because of the transformation. I wouldn't really recommend using it, but you can use that. You do get a forward ab crunch on this entirely separate joint that's just for the sake of an ab crunch, so that's cool. And if we get these butt skirts out of the way and pull those up out of the way, the hips can go forward that far, though they are on friction, so they're not going to hold up all the weight of that leg that well. Go back that far. They can go out that far unless you get the little side skirts kind of out of the way a little bit better. Like that's, yeah, they can only go out that far, but if you bring them forward, they can go out a lot better. So it's, yeah, these kind of get in the way. It's a shame that these don't go down further. You do get a thigh rotation, but again, like the butt skirts, if you have the butt skirts down all the way, this piece will clash here. With that out of the way, you can get a much better rotation. You get a 90-degree knee bend on a pretty nice ratchet. And then for the foot, you do not get any rotation, but you do get really nice ankle tilts. And if you wanted to, I wouldn't recommend it, but if you wanted to, you could tilt the toe forward for like a stepping forward kind of thing. But the problem is this is a friction hinge. It doesn't lock into place. So you probably want to keep that as tight as possible, because otherwise, if that joint isn't tight, those toes could buckle and the whole thing could like fall forward. And you don't really want that, especially on a figure that's this large and heavy. Now, there's one other thing to talk about with regards to articulation and also the look of the figure, and that is these pieces. These are hip fillers. To install these, you want to flip back the waist section, and then these will just peg into these little slots here next to the waist assembly, right where the ab crunch is. So I'm going to peg those in, and then you can bring this back down. And with those pegged in, it does fill in this section here, so it looks less like these, I guess, missing pieces of himself. It does fill it in. I will give it that. The problem is, when you're doing that, you don't get any waist rotation because these pieces sit right in there. You kind of have to pull that up in order to use the rotation, and then it'll still kind of push these pieces out. So essentially, say goodbye to the waist rotation if you use those pieces to clean them up. Additionally, you can't quite get as much leg articulation because now the hip bangs into that, so you can only go up that far and only back that far. It doesn't affect the out because the out sucks either way, but yeah, putting those pieces on definitely cleans up the look, but does hinder the articulation. So, something to be aware of. I keep him on hand because I do think he looks a little bit better with things kind of cleaned up a little bit more, things a little filled out more. But it does have that caveat of things not quite articulating the way you want them to as well. Now, with all of that said, now we can finally look at those accessories. So you've got the sword and shield combo, and they reworked the shield at least. I don't know if the sword is different. The shield is definitely different than what came with Challenger. As you can see, big difference is there's the sword attachment thing, and that's actually a separate piece that plugs into the top of the shield. Because with Challenger, you would open up the shield and there was actually a little sheath thing you would flip out. This doesn't have that anymore. But you've got that, and this can peg into the back, as you would expect, which is pretty much where I have it. But you can peg that into the back. You can also unpeg this and peg just the sword into the back if you want to do that. And you can give him the sword and shield. So Just going to slide this piece off, and the sword goes into either hand using a peg system, the kind of thing you'd expect. So you can see there is a slot in the palm and tabs on either side of the sword handle. Just tap that in, wrap the fingers and thumb around it, and now he is holding his big teal and silvery whatever sword, and that looks pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And for the shield, you could, of course, peg this into the forearm, but you can do a little bit more with the shield. You can actually, you can see there's this whole mechanism here of moving parts. When you pull things out, other things can also slide out and into place. And so that's kind of how all that comes together. But from the front, it looks like this. Just pull this out, flare these out, and then this section here slides forward, and it does kind of click into place, both the top and bottom. It's a little awkward to do, as you saw, but it does work. And there is the shield all opened up, and this also has some nice detailing and molding in it, and the triple barrel, whatever you want to call it, on the front. So yeah, you can do some cool stuff with the shield, kind of, and that can just peg into the arm as you do. And there he is with the expanded shield, and again, he looks really cool. I'm less a fan of Knight Prime's design than I am of some of the other Optimus Prime designs, but I will say this is still a cool figure. I certainly would not avoid getting this figure just because it's Knight Optimus Prime. I will avoid watching the movie again because, well, you all know what scene I'm immediately thinking about. That movie should just be destroyed from public consciousness just for the sake of that. But regardless, this guy is so cool looking. There is nothing I could say to debunk that. This guy looks awesome. The detailing is great. The articulation for what it is really good. And as you saw during the transformation and articulation, the toe sections here are very nice and solid with the friction. They require effort to move. So that is something I appreciate very much. That was a thing that really worried me with Challenger because of that whole, possibility of it pitching forward. This guy, I'm not worried about that happening with this guy because those feet are a lot more solid. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let us bring in our last round of size comparisons for NemeSeptember 2023. Wow, this is something of an event. Go. And there we go. And you can already see just how enormous this guy is. But yeah, there's Burnout, so you can see him with a more standard size deluxe. He's absolutely gigantic. Which, again, I don't mind too terribly. Like, I did buy the figures, so obviously I didn't mind it that much. But I still wouldn't have minded if he was just the regular size of Challenger. Don't get me wrong, this guy's big and beefy and hefty, and I think that's really cool, and you can see a lot of nice details because of the size, but he's really big. And to bring in someone we looked at earlier this month, here he is with Power of the Prime's Nemesis Prime, which, this guy, Power of the Prime's Nemesis, and by extension Optimus, are basically MP10 height. So you can get an idea for just how absurdly huge this is. It's absurd. And actually, before we wrap up, I want to do a couple more size comparisons, which I should have thought to do ahead of time, but I don't have them ready But thankfully, I've got a wireless microphone, so I can just chat with you all, or chat at you all, while I go and grab those size comparisons. Because I realized we're looking at what is basically the last night Optimus Prime, so I should bring out some other figures to compare them with. And one thing is, this is not related to the last night, but I did talk about it earlier. Here he is with Monocrat's, or Megatank's Monocrat. Well, this is going to require a readjustment. Or actually, I don't think I can currently get my tripod any higher without doing some major stuff. So instead, we're just going to pull this back a little bit so you can see that is how those two stack up. So yeah, Monocrat, Megatank. I can never remember if this guy's name is Megatank or Monocrat, but this thing is enormous. And for something a little bit more relevant, but also not quite relevant, here is Skybreaker, the undersized, slightly undersized knockoff of Unique Toys Dragoon. So there are the two of them together, and you can see that the slightly undersized Unique Toys Dragoon mold is just a little bit taller than the oversized Unique Toys Challenger mold, and I've seen people say that's a really good size for the two of them, with Megatron being slightly bigger, and I'm inclined to agree. I think, like, I don't care about scale, but I do think this height discrepancy between Unique Toys Dragoon and Challenger was a bit off. So that's how those two look together. Also, this guy's cool. It's basically the Unique Toys version, but with more detailing, and it's cheaper. And I did some custom work on this guy for weathering, so yeah. Maybe someday I'll make a video on him. Maybe. I don't know. No promises. I refuse to promise I'm going to make videos on any figures at this point, because I never hold up my end of the bargain when I do that. Okay. So with all of that done, we've got one more... Oh, make sure he's in frame here. One more size comparison, and then we can wrap this up. So here is BS-03S with the duck tank. And that's going to do it for this oversized knockoff of Unique Toys Challenger in Nemesis colors. And also that's going to do it for NemeSeptember 2023. This is, I didn't pick this guy to close out the month because I think he's the best. I mean, he's not bad by any means. I haven't actually figured out which figure I think is the best. I'm not saying he's not the best either, just I haven't, like, that's not why he's the last one. But I do think we finished the month strong. I mean, I wouldn't own any of these figures if I didn't like them, but yeah, this is a really, really cool figure that I think, is it still in stock on Shozy? I don't know, but definitely glad I got a hold of him. And it's really my only gripe, as I said, is the fact that he might be a little big, but still manageable. And the filler pieces for the waist section, while they do look good and they make him look a little bit better, if if your eye is drawn to the gap that's normally down there, it is disappointing how they impede the articulation. I understand there's really no way to fill that section in without doing it, but it's a little disappointing. But that's it for BS-03S. I think I've talked plenty long enough. The unedited version of this video is almost an hour long at this point, so I'm going to stop talking. But what do you all think of this guy, or Unique Toys Challenger, or any of the other Nemesis Primes that we've covered on the channel, whether it's from NemeSeptember 2023 or whenever the last one was? I forget when that was. It was a while ago. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and I can't tell you for sure whether we're going to be doing NemeSeptember in 2024. It really just depends on whether I get any more Nemesis Prime figures in between now and then. There are some that I'm a little curious about, but they're not exactly high on my list. This year I managed to get pretty much every single Nemesis Prime I was really pining after. Like the Nucleon Quest Super Convoy and the Transformers Go Beast Hunter Nemesis Prime. So, and the animated Black Optimus Prime. So yeah, I've kind of run out of Nemesis Prime Grail figures. But there are still plenty of other Nemesis Prime figures out there, some of which do have my attention. So we'll see what happens. And I can also promise you this: if they do a missing link Optimus Prime in black, because yes, I saw that figure, it looks great, I want it. If they do a missing link Optimus Prime in black, I'm definitely getting that. But that's it. I'm done talking. Thank you again. See you all next time.